Hey, deserving listeners, The Ultimatum. Let's watch.
She's gonna feel comfortable not having someone actually just push her.
Jake did push me to open up. He was just gentle about it.
Her and Jake's personalities are more calm, so they're not gonna do it in the same way you do it.
There's no way. It doesn't matter if it's freaking just one of my guy friends.
All right, so they're talking about the fact that Zay wants Ray to open up more, and Ray is saying that Jake and I were, and the mom is, pointing out that Jake and Ray are more calm, and so they were able to open up more, saying that to Zay, look, if you come on less strong, then I'm able to open up to you. And Zay is kind of doubling down on that, so let's see if they can communicate about it. There are different vibes. People sometimes have very intense vibes. Sometimes we call ourselves intense when actually we're being very hurtful and unreasonable, but some people are reasonable and, non-hurtful for the most part, and intense. They're very talkative, they ask a lot of questions, they express themselves, and some people are more reserved, and that's okay. How do you work that out? You have to understand where your partner is coming from and adjust accordingly. It doesn't mean that the other person is supposed to be like you. It just means that you have to understand each other. For example, for the Zays of the world, when Ray is quiet, it's tempting to perceive that as a passive aggression in terms of giving the silent treatment. But you have to remember, oh, she has a different vibe than me on that, so I have to maybe add to the possibilities that she's just thinking, or she's overwhelmed and she just needs some time to calm down before she says something. And if you're the Ray, you would look at Zay and say, okay, he's coming on really strong, he seems really angry at me. Well, I know from the past that he's not actually angry at me, he's just intense. And so I need to add that to the possibility that it feels like he's yelling at me, when in actuality he's just really activated right now, and it's just how he communicates. He's very emphatic about something. Now, there are people like Zay who will cross that line into aggressive intimidation talk for sure, but if you do have those differences, that's how you work it out. But if you don't have that ability to understand each other and interpret each other and accommodate for each other, then the pain happens, because the Zays will feel hurt by quiet rejection, and the Rays will be hurt by seemingly unfair intensity and anger.
Friends, if I stay with that person for 3, well, just go ahead, cut me off, and go ahead.
No, please keep talking.
No, it doesn't matter, because we wasn't supposed to.
Who said what?
I think Zay is actually getting hurt and activated and upset, and then Ray interjects, which can be a problem in those two styles, because what we'll call intense person might tend to talk and talk and talk and talk and be prone to dominating behavior, and then the quiet person will get pushed to a point where they want to say something, and then they'll just sort of interject and instead of saying, okay, I hear you, now I'm going to say something, so I need you to listen to me. Is that okay? All right. And then you talk. And you don't want to just interject. You don't want to just be like, da-da. If you have something to say, say it, but fully explain it without interrupting. If you need to stop someone and say, hey, I need you to stop because I have something to say. Is that all right? I'm sorry for, But now he is being hurt and being destructive by saying, fine, you talk, you want to interject, I give up.
What you had to say doesn't matter.
Go ahead. We good. See,
I just like to cut in when he's inaccurate.
Can I say something? Do you know why
if it's that
she
important, then
interjects?
say it after.
Do you know why?
Yes, she's saying, I just want to interject when you're inaccurate. And he says, okay, well, say it after. Don't interrupt me. If you have something to say it. Because it can be very hurtful, particularly the way that she did it. She just flippantly said, da-da-da-da. And to the Zays of the world, it can be very hurtful that you're not taking the time to say, okay, I hear you. When you have a criticism, when you will want to give feedback, when you have a request of your partner, it's important that you deliver it in a way that isn't flippant, that isn't dismissive, that isn't hurtful, because it will not be received very well. Let's just put it that way. So it requires you to you know, create some space and say, I'm about to tell you something that I would like you to change. And I love you and I want to be with you, but I need this to change, because if it doesn't, it really, really hurts me a lot, you know. And so, but just boom, just jab and out is, not only is the jab hurtful, but also the manner in which you did it was hurtful. Now, she could easily say the same thing to him of just like, well, you never stopped talking, or you just were talking over me. So I don't like that. Or you were saying random things about me that weren't true. So I think they both have things that they could be saying to each other in a constructive way, but so it seems like the mom is now going to help. So let's see how she does.
Talk for a long time.
Do you know why she interjects?
Because I won't be hurt if I don't.
Oh, whoa, okay, whoa.
Okay, so she's asking, say, do you know why she interjects? And then then Ray interjects and says, because you know, I'm not going to be hurt if I don't. And maybe that's very true, for sure. There's another way of going about it, which might really challenge Ray, because she's not used to being talkative and being open and being vulnerable, isn't super comfortable with that. And so when things, you know, come to a head, she just throws stakes out, and then she, you know, returns to her comfort place of not saying anything. So if he is over talking with her, which I could see, because he kind of did that to Shanique as well, you know, you can just imagine how these dynamics would feed off each other, right? That the more he does that, the more she shuts down. The more she shuts down, the more it hurts him, and the more he becomes domineering, because he's desperately trying to reach out, but not in a constructive way. I've seen that a lot in couples. But anyway, so the mom, I don't know exactly. Let's see what the mom says.
That was a good one, because can I tell you something? Okay. Can I tell you something? Look at me. Zay.
Yeah, I got whatever I don't. Bro,
Zay, don't do that to me because I'm her mom. Look at me. Look at me for a second.
Okay, so the mom is seeing that he's rejected. He's, you know, I'm out. You know, he's stonewalling. He's trying to, and the mom is being assertive and saying, no, don't do it. Now, I wonder about the dynamic with Ray and her parents, because it seems like the mom is very comfortable with being assertive, and I wonder if somehow that resulted in Ray taking a role in the family where she was the quiet one or so. I don't know, I'm just taking a guess. But I think this is going pretty well. He's opening up, eye contact, maybe this will be helpful.
Said because she wants to be heard.
Is that a non-negotiable for you, to be heard?
Fucking God. So you don't think they got as much out of it as you and Shanique did?
I'm a bit confused by that. So Zay's like, is that how it is? And I was like, oh, that's good. So, you know, the mom is saying, Ray wants this thing, and it'd be better if Ray and Zay were talking. So Zay says, is that true? But he words it like, is that a non-negotiable? And you're like, yeah, that's a non-negotiable. I want to be heard. Is that strange that that's a non-negotiable? Why are you upset about that?
It's not a fucking competition. I have never once said, oh, Jake and I did better than you and Shanique because we didn't argue.
I'm telling you how I feel about it.
You're just a pusher. I'm just not a pusher. You just push all the fucking time. I just don't push people like that because it doesn't make me happy to do that.
How long have you been feeling unheard?
I don't want to cut you off.
Yeah. So it's not a very constructive. He is, I think, attempting to be constructive and saying, okay, how long have you felt? Now, maybe she knows this is a setup that if I say, well, I frequently feel like you don't listen to me or you don't take the time to listen to me, then he'll say, no, that's wrong because da, da, da. Like maybe she knows that, but it's hard to know. But he asked, at least if we just look at the verbatim, he was inviting her to express and share her experience, but instead she takes a passive-aggressive stab at him and says, I'm not going to cut you off. So this isn't very promising.
I'm just making sure you're finished with your thought.
Like, come on, bro.
Oh, he asked you a question.
I'm just making sure.
Come on, bro.
I just want to be clear.
All right, I'm done talking.
She's clearly resentful of not only this moment, but many in which, if I saw this, I would say, oh, she has been cut off frequently. She has been unheard frequently. She's using this moment to really drive home the ongoing contempt and or resentment that she has that you never listen. She's still kind of in that space, right? So she's really wanting to make that point. It's not a very constructive way of putting that, but it would explain why she would be kind of hung up on that. So the mom is like, you know, in the same way that I would have been, well, he asked you a question, so what's your answer to that? I think it was a reasonable question. It's a good question for him to ask. And then she's still in that space of just like, well, I don't want to interject. It's like, well, he asked you a question, so it's not interjecting.
Wait, Rachel, he asked you a question and he paused. How long have you felt unheard? Zay, are you going to look at her when she answers?
I just think during our arguments, he just talks for a very long time.
Okay, great. The mom strong-armed this into a constructive conversation. They went along with it. This is almost exactly what I would have done. I mean, not exactly, but in terms of the vibe or the places to emphasize, this is what I would have done for sure. This is actually kind of looking like a couples therapy session. It would look different for me because as a therapist, I wouldn't be talking to them as if I was their mother. Do you know what I mean? But it would be going in this direction to try to, you know, massage them into a situation where they can calm down and, okay, he asked a question. This is constructive. This is what we want. He asked, do I not hear you? Do I not let you be heard? Okay, Ray, here's your chance to actually give him constructive feedback. He's open, he's listening, and then she actually does. So this is good.
And then when I try to respond, he's like, don't cut me off.
It's not even an answer. That's not even a question.
I'm saying I've always felt unheard.
Okay, so then Zay gets defensive, denies it essentially. So if I were there, and I think the mom is about to do that, is I would go to Zay and say, okay, I get that it's hurtful to you to hear that, but what did she say? And this is something that a lot of couples don't know to do or do, which is when your partner is saying something to you, particularly in tense moments like this, there are important steps to follow. The first step that you should follow, that Zay should follow, is, okay, I'm getting defensive. I have a lot of things to say to defend myself against that, but the first step is, do I really understand what she's saying? I'll defend myself later. I can defend myself, forever. But first step is that I need to understand what she's saying and actually communicate to her that I understand what she is saying to me. Because if I don't understand what she's saying, then we can't really move forward. What I would do is I would actually explain that, and I would say, okay, Zay, I want you to take a breath, one step at a time. I know you have a lot of things to say in defense of that, but let's table that one step at a time. Do you understand what she is saying? And he would say, yeah, I understand. Okay, so tell me, and so sometimes I'll do this because it'll be intolerable for people to actually do it to each other. It's too vulnerable, it's too painful. So I might say to Zay, tell me what she just told you. Paraphrase what she just told you. A lot of the times, the Zays of the world will say something completely different than what the other person said. It might be something like, well, she's saying I'm always wrong. I would know that was not what she said. And I go, Ray, is that what you said? Is that what you were intending to communicate? And Ray would be like, no, he always said this. Okay, wait. One step at a time. Let's return. You wanted to communicate something to him earlier, which I thought was very, very reasonable. You wanted to communicate. Restate it. It's important to know that sometimes the first time we say something to someone, they get defensive, they misinterpret it. So let's calm down. Let's take some breaths. And Ray, tell him again. I know it's hard, but tell him again. Now, if Ray's like, I don't want to, I'd be like, Ray, tell me. Tell me what you want to tell him. And she'd be like, well, I feel like a lot of times he doesn't hear me. He doesn't take the time. He talks over me. He talks like, he doesn't take the time to really listen to me. And I feel like he dominates all the time. Okay, Zay, what did she just say? And this can take literally years. It is hard for people to do. When we are distressed because we're hearing criticism, which is very threatening to us, it is very hard for us to think straight. It's very hard for us to listen. And a lot of us have never had this modeled to us. They don't teach this in schools very often, or when they do, it's very limited. In my opinion, 1 hour a day from kindergarten through college should be dedicated to issues like this. Think of the things we could solve if we taught this sort of stuff and repeated it over and over again, age appropriate, 3rd grade, 9th grade, da-da-da. I know some people are out there teaching this. I'm not, criticizing all educators, but not enough. when I think about all the things that we need to be teaching people and the priorities, I put this, top 3 things we need, top 3 subjects we need to be teaching people, if not the number 1. I mean, just so many things we could solve in this way. Anyway, so it takes a long time. And so you can think about yourself in terms of how you communicate with your partner, because when you're having distress, there's a very good chance that you're having fights like what Zay and Ray are having right now. Instead of taking the time, take a breath. Okay, what is my partner telling me? I have so many things to say, but I'm not going to say it. I have a lot of defenses against that because they don't, there's this and this. Okay, I'm going to take a breath. Okay, partner of mine, I hear you saying this. Is that what you're saying? Now, some people say that's corny, but what I always say, if healthy is being corny, then be corny.
That's why she feels unheard.
That's my answer.
She just answered your question. Did you hear that?
What was the question?
The question was, why do you
I said,
feel
how
unheard?
long?
And I said always during our arguments. I've always felt unheard during our arguments.
Always, Zay. The answer is always.
Okay, I wouldn't emphasize the always bit because that's probably not true. Zay probably has heard her and has created space for her. Who knows? But at the very least, it's going to be a hard pill to swallow if you're being told you've literally never listened to me in our entire relationship. That's pretty extreme. But the mom was doing really great up until this moment. This is not what I would have done. Now, maybe it'll become constructive, but she's doing great. I actually want to rewind that because there's a lot we can learn from this.
I'm saying I've always felt unheard.
That's why she feels unheard.
That's my answer.
She just answered your question. Did you hear that?
What was the question?
And he's doing what I see a lot of people do, which is she answered your question, what did you hear? And then he's just like, what is the question? Because when we're distressed, it's really hard for us to truly listen to another person. And you have to, if you're a helper like me, you have to really help people to take the time to listen to each other, particularly if you're Zay and you're typically the one kind of dominating a conversation.
The question was, why do you
feel how
unheard?
long?
And I said always during our arguments. I've always felt unheard during our arguments.
Now, what I would have said in that moment is, well, Ray, let's just say frequently that you feel this way. Are you saying throughout your relationship you will frequently feel this? So I would try to strong arm that a little bit because I wouldn't have time, given this exercise, to explain, and hopefully I would have earlier. We want to stay away from words like always and never because they can be really hurtful and they're usually not accurate. I would try to soothe that a little bit instead of, because it would be very tempting for Zay to be tripped up on that always word and to debate that. I definitely wouldn't repeat it to Zay and say, she's saying always because you always don't listen to her. So
always, Zay. The answer is always.
Yeah, that's going to be hard to hear, really hurtful, shaming. He could feel ganged up on. Now, maybe this will be a wake-up call for him, that it'll help him. It's hard to say, but this isn't the style that I would have with them. He's crying. I think he's hurt. I think he feels sort of trapped without support. I think that the mom could have prevented this level of hurt from him if she hadn't emphasized that always part. She was doing, in terms of my style of trying to help people like this, she was doing really great up until that point. It's like, and of course she'd be biased for her own daughter, right? But I don't know, maybe this will be a wake-up call for him and maybe it'll help.
I'm not sure whether they can make it as a married couple. Can they get through this? Can they actually communicate enough with each other to make it work?
He could be extra healthy. He's being very healthy by crying because it's very healthy to cry. And it signals to your partner that you're upset and hurt and there's a lot at stake for you. It would be extra healthy if he were to turn to Ray and say, I'm crying because I'm confused and I'm scared and I feel ashamed of myself and I feel alone and I feel like I'm not being given the benefit of the doubt. I feel like you're giving me the cold shoulder right now and accusing me of something that I don't think it's always true. I guess I just need some reassurance that I'm not a horrible, I feel like you believe I'm a horrible person, and I guess I'm just looking for some reassurance that I'm not, because I feel like maybe you believe that. That would be extra healthy, and then that would invite Ray to reassure and say, I don't think you're a horrible person, I love you, and you sometimes are very dominating. You're very intense, and I try to talk, and you will talk over me, and then I just shut up because I don't know what else to do, and I want that to change. You know, instead of saying, you've never listened to me in our entire relationship.
It's not worth, like, getting this worked up.
If you love somebody and you really care about someone, why wouldn't you get this worked up?
Interesting. So she's turning to him, I think, in an attempt to console him, but saying it's not worth getting this worked up. I think meaning you're overreacting by your crying. I think she's trying to say it's not that bad. Like, I don't hate you. You seem to be crying as if I hate you. You don't. I think that's where she's going with it. It's interesting to see because there's a lot of different responses that she could have had. She could be like, honey, you're crying. I'm sorry. Like, maybe I was being a little harsh, but I do mean what I was saying, but maybe I was wording it in a harsh way. That would have been more constructive. And so she says, you're essentially overreacting. And then he says, this is a big deal, so I don't think I'm overreacting, which I think is true. And then often the Rays of the world will feel like they're at fault for causing their partner to cry, and they're mainly living in their own guilt and also their own anger that the other person is making them feel guilty, and they're really residing in that place of just like, I feel guilty that he's crying because I hurt his feelings, and I also don't feel like I did anything wrong, and you just kind of live in that place instead of having those feelings, but also like, well, you know, he's my partner and he's crying and it's because of me. Honey, I love you. I'm sorry. I'm with you. So I think she tends to be more introverted and more internal along those lines, and I wonder if that's part of their conflict.
If there's anything I need to find out, I will find out. And I found videos on Jake's phone filming this close up to Ray's ass doing this shit at the fucking club. Why are there multiple videos?
Why are you going through my phone right now?
Why are there multiple videos?
We're learning from April that she has a policy of making sure that she always finds out information, or that she will always find information if it's important that she finds it out. I don't know what that means. Does that mean that she feels entitled to breaking into other people's privacy? I don't know. But she did that to Jake. He had a video where he was with Ray because that's who he was dating. I always have to look at my notes because it's hard to keep everyone straight. And Jake and Ray were apparently at a club or something, and he was filming her butt. April is questioning about that. I'm guessing that Jake's going to say, well, as you know, this was a show in which we broke up temporarily while I dated someone else. I guess a part of that dating experience was I filmed her butt because we were dating. We were in a relationship. And now I'm with you, though. So there's that. Now we got to talk about you breaking into my phone. That's not okay. You can't break my privacy that way. It's a trust violation. Let's see how they manage this. But maybe he did something wrong and I just don't understand the details.
I am psycho and I airdrop them to myself. Why are there multiple videos?
That's some bullshit.
No, it's not some bullshit.
Yep,
Why are there multiple videos of you recording?
Okay, so she said this earlier too. I don't know if I showed that clip, that she says, I'm psycho. I think what she means is, I'm the sort of person that's going to get really up in arms and invade your privacy because I'm worried I'm going to lose you. And I'm that way. Usually that's an insult, but she's, I guess, owning it. Is that her way of saying, I step into that place and therefore I'm entitled to invade other people's space and to be unreasonable? It kind of sounds that way. Now, he could say, okay, we can talk about the invasion of privacy later, but I will answer the question now, which is, I was in a relationship. Yes, I filmed her behind. I guess I forgot to delete it. I can see how that would bother you. I'm sorry. I don't want to be with her. It was just a frivolous thing. I didn't even really look at the video. Sorry, I'll delete it. Okay? All right. Let's talk about the fact that you invaded my privacy. Not okay. Not okay. Let's see how they manage it.
Some other girl's ass. You're over here filming this girl's coochie or f***ing ass
trying right now to make me look like the worst guy in the world. You are literally attacking me right now.
I'm not attacking you.
Are.
I'm
That's up for you to go through my phone and go through all that.
Colby was not filming me shaking my ass, and if Madeline ever saw that, I guarantee you she'd be f***ing lit.
So he's saying, you're attacking me right now, and I wonder if what he's thinking and or saying is, you're doing this because the cameras are here. Because we have to understand, they spend time away from the cameras. Why wouldn't she bring this up off camera? But she's bringing it up on camera, and I think that's, part of his discomfort or upsetness about it. Now, again, it wouldn't be hard for him to turn around and say, all right, I'll explain the video. I was in a something like that, instead of walking away. But it's understandable given the fact that she's saying, I'm psycho and I broke into your phone and I'm entitled and that's okay, so I'm going to attack you. You know, it's reasonable that he would have a hard time dealing with that and walking away.
Livid.
If she would have just asked me about the things in my phone, I've been open and honest with her and showed her. Like, it's not a big deal. Because there's nothing to hide. She made it sound so bad. That's an invasion of privacy. I've never gone through her phone once in my life. I don't trust April at all right now after what she just did.
Yeah, that's a major trust violation. That someone would just break into your phone without any reason, do that to you. That shows whenever you break trust in this way, what happens is the victim thinks, well, what else have you done and what will you do in the future? If you're capable of that and unapologetic about it, God knows what you've done. You've probably broken into my phone before. What else are you doing? It's extremely destructive. If you want to ruin a relationship, do stuff like this.
There's no fucking reason to have videos of bitches doing fucking this at the club. That's fucking cheating.
That's not cheating, because it was a joke. You didn't know the behind the story. I wasn't just filming her ass for no reason.
You're filming her ass everywhere she goes.
She's saying it's cheating. I thought it wasn't cheating if they were. Did it happen during a different time that was after they were back together? I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. And then he says, it's not cheating. You don't even know the context. Well, that makes me think he's trying to play it off like it's no big deal. I mean, if I were to do that, I think my wife would have every reason to be concerned about something like that. Although I think my wife would just think it was funny. My wife isn't a very jealous person. I would like to think we have a secure relationship, and I wouldn't do something like that. But anyway, so was it cheating? If it was, then it would make sense that she would be upset. It wouldn't justify breaking into his phone, but I'm a little confused.
Oh my God, stop.
After what the f*** is on that phone, I don't think that all they did is kiss and make out. I'm not surprised. Ray walked in here in the most unstable f***ing relationship. She's twerking her ass off in the club.
All right, so she's drawing the conclusion that because he has a video of her butt dancing in a club, that means that they were more sexually involved than what he disclosed to her. Okay, that's a worthy conversation. I don't really see the connection there, but it would be totally normal for anyone in this position on the show to be like, did they tell me the truth? Did they go further than they told me? That wouldn't feel great because they're lying by omission, and I would like to think they wouldn't go all the way with them because that was kind of a line that I was hoping wasn't going to happen, or maybe we even talked about that wouldn't happen. By the way, side note, I thought that given the premise of the show, we were going to see a lot more salacious behavior between the new couples, but either it didn't happen or they just didn't show it, but there was none of that. There was only that one kind of grainy scene of that very intrusive camera in Shanique and Zay's room where it looked like, and in the tame version, they were just sort of touching and cuddling. On the more salacious version, they were actually having sex under the covers. And so anyway, point is that it'd be normal, be okay for her to be like, did you go further than you revealed with, Jake was with Ray. Did you go further with Ray than you told me? And when I see that picture, it kind of triggers that in me. Okay, now you would say to her, well, don't trigger yourself by breaking into his phone, you know, that kind of, but anyway. Now, that'd be okay. And she could be vulnerable. She could say, I'm jealous. I'm worried I'm going to lose you. I'm worried that you lied to me. And then invite him to have a conversation. You don't have to attack him on camera and call him a cheater and say, I'm psycho. This is my right to do this.
And he's clearly proud of recording it up close in front row seat. Okay. Well, all my girlfriends are downstairs waiting, so I'm gonna go and continue having a great rest of my birthday.
Now, I'll hold out for the possibility that he did do something wrong, and that although it was wrong for her to break into his phone, what she found was actually very incriminating to him. He seemed to be almost kind of agreeing with that, but so I don't know enough information. If I were there, I'd be like, hold on, when did this happen? What are we talking about? Because we didn't see details around that. All right, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.